The bright lights of the America's Got Talent stage shimmered as the crowd buzzed with excitement. Contestants from all over the world waited nervously backstage, each hoping their moment would change their life forever. Among them stood a young Filipino man named Marco Santos. He was dressed simply, wearing a worn denim jacket and black jeans. Nothing about him screamed superstar. His hands trembled slightly as he held his audition number, whispering a silent prayer under his breath. Marco grew up in a small fishing village in the Philippines. His family struggled financially, and music was never something they thought could become a career. His father worked long hours at sea, and his mother sold vegetables in the local market. As a child, Marco would sit beside an old radio that barely worked, listening to music from distant stations. One day, a crackly voice came through the static, singing Heartbreak Hotel. That was the first time Marco heard Elvis Presley. From that moment, something inside him changed. He became obsessed with Elvis. He copied his hairstyle using coconut oil, practiced his dance moves in front of a cracked mirror, and tried to imitate his deep, powerful voice. Neighbors would laugh and tease him, calling him Elvis Boy. But Marco didn't care. Music became his escape from poverty and hardship. Years passed, and Marco kept singing at local fiestas, school events, and small bars. People were shocked by how much he sounded like Elvis. Some even closed their eyes and said it felt like the king himself was standing there. Still, Marco never imagined he would one day stand on an international stage. One night, a friend showed him a clip from America's Got Talent. Marco watched in awe as ordinary people became stars overnight. That night, he made a decision. He saved money for months, working extra shifts and selling old belongings. Finally, he had enough to apply and travel. Now here he was, standing backstage, thousands of miles from home. The announcer called his number. His heart pounded like a drum. He took a deep breath and stepped onto the stage. The crowd clapped politely as he walked to the center. The judges looked curious. Simon Cowell leaned forward slightly, his expression neutral. Sophia smiled warmly. Howie raised an eyebrow, and Heidi nodded encouragingly. Terry Crews, the host, asked him his name. Marco introduced himself with a shy smile and a soft Filipino accent. He told them he was from a small village in the Philippines and that he had traveled very far to be there. Terry asked what he would be doing. Marco replied, "I will sing." Simon asked him why he chose to come to AGT. Marco swallowed and said he wanted to help his family, to show that dreams can come true no matter where you come from. The audience awed softly. Simon leaned back in his chair. "What are you going to sing for us today?" Marco hesitated for a second. "I will sing an Elvis Presley song." The crowd murmured. Simon raised an eyebrow. "That's a big choice. Good luck." Marco walked to the center of the stage. The music began softly. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and then he opened his mouth. The first note sent chills through the theater. It wasn't just similar, it was exact. The deep, smooth tone, the vibrato, the power. It sounded like Elvis had come back to life. People gasped. Some covered their mouths in shock. Simon's eyes widened. Sophia leaned forward, stunned. Howie whispered, "No way." Marco sang Can't Help Falling in Love. Every note was perfect. His body moved naturally, swaying just like Elvis. He even added the famous lip curl. The audience was frozen in disbelief. Halfway through the song, people started crying. The emotion in his voice was real. It wasn't just imitation. It came from his soul. You could feel his story, his struggles, his dreams, all poured into that performance. As the chorus hit, the crowd stood up. Goosebumps covered arms. Phones were raised to record the moment. Marco hit the final note, holding it beautifully before slowly letting it fade. Silence filled the theater. Then boom, the entire audience erupted into thunderous applause. People screamed, clapped, and cheered. Some shouted, "Elvis." Marco stood there, eyes wide, tears forming. He couldn't believe what was happening. The judges stood up. Sophia was clapping hard. Heidi looked emotional. Howie shook his head in disbelief. Simon stayed seated for a moment, staring at Marco, then slowly stood up and began clapping too. Marco wiped tears from his eyes, bowing slightly. Terry ran onto the stage, laughing. "Oh my God, that was insane. You sound exactly like Elvis." The crowd cheered again. Sophia spoke first. "Marco, I am in shock. You don't just sound like Elvis, you're Elvis. That was magical. You took us back in time. How we followed. I have heard many impersonators, but you are something else. Close your eyes and it's like he's right there. You are incredible." Heidi smiled warmly. "You are so sweet, and your voice is a gift. I loved every second. I could listen to you all day." Then Simon spoke. The crowd went quiet. "I'm going to be honest," Simon said. "When you said Elvis, I thought, oh no, here we go again. But the moment you sang, you shut me up. That was absolutely unbelievable. You have one of the best impersonation voices I have ever heard. You are special." Marco broke down in tears. He covered his face, overwhelmed. Simon continued, "But here's the thing, you're not just copying, you made it your own. And that's what matters. I think the world needs to hear you." The crowd roared. Terry held up the mic. "Marco, how do you feel right now?" Marco struggled to speak. I cannot believe. Thank you. This is for my family, for my village. Thank you so much." The judges cast their votes. One by one, they all said yes. 4 big yeses. Confetti exploded as Marco dropped to his knees, crying. The audience cheered louder than ever. Terry hugged him. Backstage, Marco called his mother on video. She was crying, holding the phone with shaking hands. "Anak, I saw you. You were amazing," she sobbed. Marco smiled through tears. "Ma, this is for you." The video of his audition went viral overnight. Millions of views poured in. People from all over the world commented, saying they couldn't believe how much he sounded like Elvis. Some even said it was better than the original recordings. News channels featured him. Interviews followed. Marco became a sensation. In the next round, Marco returned stronger. This time he sang Jailhouse Rock. He danced, jumped, and worked the stage like a true performer. The crowd went wild. Judges laughed and clapped along. Simon smiled the entire time. "You are a star," he said afterward. Week after week, Marco advanced. Each performance showed more confidence. He started mixing Elvis style with his own Filipino flair, adding small touches of his culture. Fans started calling him the Filipino Elvis. He received letters from people saying his story inspired him to chase the dreams. In the semi-finals, Marco sang Love Me Tender. The performance was soft, emotional, and powerful. Couples held hands. Tears flowed again. Simon said, "You are one of the most memorable acts we have ever had." When the finals arrived, Marco knew this was his biggest moment. He wore a white suit inspired by Elvis's famous outfits. The crowd went crazy when he stepped out. He sang Suspicious Minds. The energy was insane. People danced in their seats. Judges stood up halfway through. It felt like a real concert. When he finished, the theater exploded. Marco bowed deeply, his heart racing. No matter the result, he had already won. His life had changed forever. When the winner was announced, Marco didn't take first place, but he finished in the top 3. He didn't care. He smiled, hugged the other contestants, and thanked everyone. After the show, Marco received record offers, invitations to perform around the world, and even a chance to tour in Las Vegas. He sent money home to his parents and helped rebuild his village school. In interviews, Marco always said, "Never stop dreaming. If a boy from a small village can stand on that stage, anyone can." Years later, Marco still performs. Every time he sings, he remembers that moment when he opened his mouth and shocked the world. And that's the story of how a Filipino singer stunned Simon Cowell and the world by sounding exactly like Elvis. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let us know in the comments what you thought about this performance. See you in the next video.